Welcome to the AngelsWin Podcast with former Angels broadcaster Victor Rojas, featuring Geoff Stoddart and Chuck Richter. And now it's time to talk about some baseball. Victor, take it away.
Oh, it is Sunday night. That means it's time for us to record our AngelsWin Podcast. I'm Victor Rojas, and we welcome you to episode number 16, along with Geoff Stoddart and Chuck Richter. So glad you could join us. And it's been an interesting week as far as the Angels are concerned. Last week, obviously, we didn't have a lot of great things to say, considering the way the team played the previous week. I don't know that I have a ton to say. I'm going to let Geoff. I think I might let Geoff host this week's episode. But as we start recording this, obviously, there's the Angels won on Sunday. They salvaged the finale of the third game against Houston, which is a good thing. So you hope you have some momentum going into the Arlington series. But before we get into any of that stuff, just wanted to say hello to my cohorts, my compadres, and hope your weekend is treating you well. I know, Chuck, Chuck, you're always tweeting about these awesome thunderstorms or storms that are blowing through Tennessee. What's going on there?
Yeah, it's crazy because living on the West Coast my whole life, and Geoff, you know too, you spent the majority of your time on the West Coast. We didn't get thunderstorms and I don't know how Colorado is, but they just come through here. We get at least 2 a week. It keeps everything nice and lush, though, right? It's really green here. It's beautiful. But holy smokes, man! I mean, the thunder is like nothing you've ever heard before. It's literally like a bomb just went off right above your house. The lightning is just like a show, and the rain is just torrent. I mean, it comes down like it's in the days of Noah, right? It's crazy, man. And
that's why you have a farm now that you're out there.
I need a boat.
Canoe.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
So, yeah, it's pretty spectacular. I like it. It's just a change. I'm not used to it.
Yeah. How's Colorado treating you, Jeffers?
Colorado's good. We have typically late spring into early summer. We have our kind of monsoony, kind of season where we get a lot of thunderstorms that roll in, but they usually die out come, early July. But this year we've had a ton of them as well. And I'd say, 4 or 5 days a week, every afternoon we get a big thunderstorm that rolls in. And Chuck, just like you were referencing, usually by this time in August, everything is kind of, brown, dead, with the exception of the trees. But the pastures and in fields, the grass and weeds are brown and dead, and everything is green and lush and beautiful. So, I've been enjoying it.
Good. Glad to hear it.
And how's Florida?
It's, let's see, about 3 o'clock. It usually rains for about 40 minutes and it just goes away. It's just typical Southwest Florida. You get some thunder boomers that roll through and, you just roll it. It's been hot though. It has been.
Yeah,
it's hot and muggy down here. It's like 95 to 100 degrees with the humidity. It's been a really tough summer here. I mean, we were here last year in late July for a baseball tournament, and it was hot and muggy. But this year it's just insane. It's just insane, and all the locals keep saying the same thing. It's just been ridiculous. So
yeah,
and even down here they talk about how they're kind of in a drought. Even though we get that rain that kind of passes through, they just haven't gotten the rain that they're accustomed to here in Florida, especially in southern part of Florida. But we're just now creeping into. Well, I know we're in hurricane season, but I think that'll change here soon as we get into late August into September and so on. So,
wow,
yeah.
Were you going to ask me something, Chuck?
Yeah, I'm actually gonna be down visiting my daughter in Tampa.
Nice.
The middle of September. So that's a little bit of a drive to you, though, right? I mean,
couple
that's
hours.
A couple hours. Let's talk offline because I think maybe we can make something happen.
Oh, you don't
Chuck
want to
likes
talk
setting up get-togethers while we're on the podcast. I've noticed.
Nothing wrong with that.
Hey,
nothing wrong with that.
I may actually bring you a good bottle of Kentucky bourbon. I'm just saying.
There you go. You never know.
Talk
You
about
never know.
pressure to get us to commit.
Well, if you're joining us for the first time, welcome. Our podcast is it's pretty simple. We kind of go back in time, look at what happened last week. Then we talk about other stuff that tickles our fancy, and then we talk about the week ahead for the Angels, plus a mailbag and so on and so forth. Sometimes we go off on tangents. Last week we did. We never promised anything. We never promised to stay on script, and I think that's the beauty of it. We just kind of speak our mind. Obviously, we all three of us want the Angels to win. I'm probably the most grounded of the three of us, I think, from a realist perspective. Chuck is probably the guy wearing the pom-poms and the cheerleading outfit of the three of us, and Geoff is right down the middle. No, I'm kidding. But it is what it is. I think it's a great mix, and we thank you for joining us here for episode number 16. So let's get right after it. I mentioned that the Angels did pick up the series win on Sunday. Not the series win. They pick up the finale of the series to salvage one of the three games. They lost the first two against the Astros at Minute Maid, both by the score of 11-3. It wasn't pretty. This on the heels of taking 2 of 3 from the San Francisco Giants at Angel Stadium. They had the off day on Thursday, rolled into Houston. The road trip will continue. We'll talk about that here in just a sec, going into Arlington before returning home a week from Friday against the Tampa Bay Rays. So that schedule that the Angels, everybody knew that the Angels had going into the month of August, is going to continue. It is a schedule that obviously is not easy. I think everyone knew that. And I think that's what it became so imperative that the Angels played very good baseball leading into the All-Star break and post-All-Star break, so that when you ran through that gauntlet, that you would at least, even if you came out at 500, that you would have some momentum going into September. And so I look at the September schedule, by the way, and it's not like it's a cakewalk in September. I mean, you've got Oakland and you've got Detroit and the like, but there's still some games to be played against some pretty good teams, including Seattle, right, Tampa Bay, and so on and so forth. But I looked at the win on Sunday against the Angels, and we usually tell you where the Angels are in the standings. Currently speaking, they are 12 back in the West and 6.5 back in the wild card. The wild card number is not going to change going into Monday's contest. The divisional one may, and they could have been 11.5, but the San Francisco Giants were unable to close out the Rangers in the top of the ninth. Rangers tied it up, so it's 1-1 in the bottom of the ninth as of this recording. Seattle and Baltimore. Seattle obviously has played very good baseball as well. They're tied at 2 up at, I will always know as Safeco Field in Seattle. So,
yes.
But those are the teams that are ahead of the Angels. And let's take a look at the wild card specifically. Both the Rays and the Astros lost. Those are the top 2 teams in the wild card. Toronto won. That's the third team. That's the team you're trying to catch up to. Seattle is playing currently. Boston won today. The Yankees gave up 5 in the bottom of the ninth to the Miami Marlins today and got walked off. And then, of course, the Angels picked up the victory. Cleveland's just behind the Angels, 2 games back. They picked up the win as well. So that's the state of affairs. Typically, you'd say, okay, you took 2 of 3. You lose 2 of 3. It's a push, 500, and you take your chances in Arlington. I don't know about you guys, but I think I feel just about as down as I did a week ago after that, that homestand that just was brutal. And I just you go 3-3 and you're like, okay, that's not bad. But I feel bad about this 3-3. I don't know about you guys. And maybe it's because the offense has been non-existent. This is an offense that's hit just over 215 in the month of August. So everyone's talking about and touting how this offense can score some runs. And, you extrapolate that out over the course of the season. Of course, it has from a runs per game perspective. They've had some poor starting pitching. Chase Silseth threw the ball well on Sunday. Back-to-back great starts for him. I know some folks are already anointing a spot for him in the rotation. I love how people just get so giddy about it. What does that say as an Angel fan? The state of the Angels, where a guy who has a total of 11 career Major League starts over 2 seasons, 4 starts this year, that all of a sudden that's our guy. He's a rotation piece going forward. I mean, what does that say about Anderson and Sandoval and Canning and so on and so forth? I get that you want to look at the silver lining, and that's what fans are. But I'll open it up to you, Jeff. I mean, I just kind of feel like, oh, okay, cool, 500, and let's roll into Arlington, see what happens in that 3-game series.
Yeah, it's bad. It's really bad, and it's really dire. So, I guess I'll start off by thanking both of you for covering for me last week. Cheers. For those that listened and tuned in, I was in rough shape last week, so feeling good. So this morning I'm like, okay, I need to come correct this morning. So I sat down and did some homework to look at the rest of the season and what it will take to get there. So the Angels have 14 series left. 9 of those 14 series,
46 games. Sorry to interrupt you. Like 45 games, right? 46.
43.
43.
Yeah. 9 of the series, 9 of the 14 are against teams that are 500 plus. 5 of the series are for sub 500 teams. If we look at what it took to get into the wild card last year, it was 86 wins. That means that the Angels would need to go 27-16 to meet last year's number. However, as Victor mentioned, the Blue Jays are holding that last spot. Right now, the Blue Jays are on pace to win 89 games. For the Angels to match that for where they're currently at, that means they would need to go 30-13 in order to come in at 89 wins and potentially put themselves in a spot for a wild card position. Guys, I'm not seeing this team as being able to do 30-13 or anywhere close to that. I mean,
no
Chuck,
chance.
I don't know.
Anything can happen in baseball, but
sure,
they would have to catch serious lightning in a bottle.
Right. They would need to catch lightning in a bottle, and some other teams would need to completely collapse.
Right.
In order for this to happen. So the threading of the needle that would need to happen for the Angels, Victor, to your point, I'm, after going through that exercise, I'm more depressed easily today than I was last week.
Chuck, I'll let you talk. I just on the heels of what you brought up, last year's 86 game third wild card spot was the Tampa Bay Rays.
Mm-hmm.
That was 80. They finished 86-76, and they finished that on a 5-game losing streak. They won 2 of their last 10 games. So keep that in mind. That wasn't an 86 win. I mean, it was
like somebody reached up to grab that 86. They fell down to that 86.
They fell down to 86. So, I mean, let's just to add some perspective on it, because I was curious. I couldn't remember how it ended. It was Toronto, Seattle, Tampa Bay in that third wild card spot, 92, 90, and 86 wins respectively. Let's say just split it and say 88 wins. Let's say they would have lost 3 or 2 or 3 of the last, just roughly 88 to 89 wins, which is kind of what everybody keeps saying for this year. It's like 89, 90 wins to try to get in there.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So let me step back.
All right, Chuck, polish this turd for us. Tell us why it can happen.
I mean, I'm going in a different direction here. And to your earlier point, Victor, I am the most, I think, optimistic of this group.
Yeah.
And
I think we're all optimistic. I think it's like you tend to look at it, and this is not a negative, through rose-colored glasses.
Sure.
You know what I mean? It's like we'll toss some stuff out there, and then you see the good or the silver light, trying to find that silver. So I think that's awesome. I'm not. Yeah. I don't think you're a cheerleader by any stretch of the imagination, or that you are detached from reality. I think you get your head on straight, but you're always looking at the positive, trying to find that positive.
Right, because I mean, if you just look at all the negative that's been happening with this team this year and last year, and then my goodness, how many other years before that? 5-6 years. It's not been good for Angels fans this year or this week, and we'll talk about that later in the show. We had some personal things happen that brought a little bit more perspective into the game of baseball for me. And I did the same exercise as Jeff even before the Houston series, and it was not looking good. And for me, and just looking at the Angels' outcome and how they're going to get there. And for me, to your point, looking at the silver lining, Victor, and what I like to do, that's all I'm looking for at this point. I hope they can finish strong. I hope they can finish with a winning record. I hope that, Ohtani gets back, Trout, the team puts a valiant effort we're talking, they're playing meaningful games in the last week of the season, and that's all I'm hoping for. Yeah. And I think that's achievable with Trout and Ohtani and maybe Neto coming back and some other guys. I hope that's what plays out. That's kind of my hope at this point. And just trying to take series. They should have swept that Giants series early in the week. It was Estevez blew that game on Monday. Yeah. So it's frustrating. They got their asses kicked Friday and Saturday against the Astros. The Astros are just really good. They're really good.
That's where, when I watch the games, especially matchups against the Astros, as much of a silver lining as we're always looking for, and try to stay positive, and anything can happen. It's baseball, yada, yada, yada. You see the two games on Friday and Saturday, and you're like, that's a different world of baseball. That's two completely different teams on different paths this year. Yeah. Well, the Astros have been on it for several years now, but you know what I'm saying? It's like okay, you play the Giants and they've got a good record or they've played well, and it's like, okay, you take 2 of 3 and you're feeling good about it, but it's the Giants, right? It's like, they're okay. Same with getting excited about the Tigers sweep. The Tigers aren't very good. Then you go to Toronto, and then there's a little taste of realism, and I think that's where I step back and sit there and go, look, it's great. You can look at the 6.5, 7 runs per game that they score, but you're giving up 6 runs every night, from an earned run average perspective, and we're basically always talking about the same thing, that this is an essential 500 team. That's what we've said all season long. Nothing has changed. We're always hoping for it to change. We're hoping for that momentum. We're hoping for them to catch fire and have another little stretch where they can reel off 7, 8 in a row, so that you can get to that point. And it needs to happen soon, because you mentioned Logan Ohtani and Trouty, Neto when his back feels better. God, wouldn't it be awesome if they did reel off 4, 5 in a row right before those guys come back? Now, to me, that's kind of the injection from an adrenaline standpoint. It's like, all right, now we have some momentum, and now we're getting those guys back, and we'll go take our chances over the last 4 or 5 weeks of the season. Whereas before, it's like, well, wait till those guys come back in mid to late August, and you just got to tread water, and that's what they just keep doing, just treading water. Yeah. And meanwhile, while the Angels are treading water, the Rangers have been stupid good since the All-Star break. The Astros have been stupid good since the All-Star break. Seattle's been stupid good. Toronto, even though they had their little stretch, they're playing a little bit better of late. It's like, those are the things that come to mind as a fan, and doing this. It's like, let's be realistic about it. Sure. Do they have a chance? Yeah, there's an outside chance, and that's why when you look at the probability of getting to the postseason is so low. Because don't forget, this year there isn't a tiebreaker. We're talking 6.5 back of the wild card to tie, to match up, right? With the Toronto Blue Jays. They lose that tiebreaker. Angels are 2-4 against the Blue Jays this year. Seattle, they're currently 4-6 against Seattle. I'm just looking at the teams just ahead of The Angels won the series against Boston. They're 4-3. They won the series against the Yankees 4-2. But those teams are still playing catch up as well to the top three teams in the wild card. So you almost have to look at it from the standpoint, you're 6.5 back to tie. So you're 7 back, right? In theory, right?
Sure.
Right.
And that's how you have to kind of look at it. And that's why the whole realism kind of kicks in of it's going to be a tough go. It's going to be a tough go, especially when you continue to get, kind of piss poor outings from Tyler Anderson and Reed Detmers and, just like these random starts that are inconsistent. We'll see what happens this week coming up because Shohei's not going to pitch on Wednesday now. He apparently has asked off on Wednesday against the Rangers due to fatigue. Not surprised.
Yeah.
And, they'll re-scramble the rotation. He'll probably pitch over the week. Did they say he's going to pitch? He's not going to face the Rays. He's going to face the Reds instead.
That's what I
correct?
heard.
The Reds. Yeah,
So
the
he'll
Reds.
skip. So he'll really. That's a pretty good stretch of games to miss. But whatever, he'll take third. Remember, the Angels are off on Thursday after playing 3 against Texas. Then they got 3 against the Tampa Bay Rays, 3 against the Cincinnati Reds, and they go out on the road, which is kind of a crappy roadie. It's the Mets, at Phillies, cross country to play Oakland before returning home, and now we're into towards the end of September. I think I got that correct, right?
Or ends at
You did.
end of
Yeah.
August.
To the end of August before you roll into September. So, I think that's the frustrating part of something always seems to rear its ugly head, right? There's just something like, what was it? The Godfather. Just when you think you're out, they pull you back in. And it's the reverse for the Angels. Just when you think you're in, they pull you back out,
Yeah, exactly.
Like the Estevez thing you were talking about, the blown saves, back-to-back blown saves for him. It's just like little things like that. It's just like chipping away. And I think that's what's been so frustrating for Angel fans. And I get it. I totally get it.
It's difficult. I think, one of the things that was glaringly apparent to me the last Friday, Saturday is watching the Astros and just saying, this is a team that we're not. We are not in this caliber yet. And even if all the stars line up and we thread that needle and make the playoffs, these are the type of teams that we're going to be playing. And, we don't match up. We just don't. I'd love to say that we do. I'd love to, say that we've got the weapons to compete. They haven't shown it all year. And, Victor mentioned consistency and inconsistency. And those are words that have come up time and again in this podcast, over the first 15 episodes that we've had, is that this team just lacks that consistency to put it all together and drive it forward. One group will be hot, another group is cold. It's just not working.
Yeah, and I got to call something out. I mean, Hunter Renfroe has just been atrocious with runners in scoring position. $171 with a 537 OPS with runners in scoring possession. That is just terrible. And mind you guys, this guy was hitting cleanup for the first half of the season, right?
Yep.
And it just, how many wins could have come out of him just coming through here and there on at least an average basis, right? He's just been terrible. And he's been a failed signing. I'm sorry, this season. And, I don't think you were ever looking at him as a guy that was going to be the piece for the Angels, but at least somebody that, could club 30, 35 home runs, hit 250 and, drive in 80 to 90 runs.
Yeah.
But man, he's just been awful. It's just, and then the Angels have gotten no production from first base this year. other than Mike Moustakas, who's been here for a minute.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's really bad.
Yeah. The situational hitting still, I mean, it's something that's been it's been there all year. The team right now is at 239 collectively with men in scoring position this year, 215 when there are 2 outs in those situations. Hunter in the 9th inning on Sunday had an opportunity, if I remember correctly, popped out behind the plate.
Oh, yeah.
I think that was with runners at first and third, if I'm not mistaken, for out number 2.
And then again today.
Or that was was that the bases loaded or first and third? Whatever. That's what I was talking about. That was today. Yeah, bases loaded.
Yeah.
Because then Grichuk, who hasn't done anything since being acquired.
He hasn't done anything either. Either has CJ Cron.
Yeah. But, let's keep it in perspective now. I don't know what anybody was really expecting.
Well, I know.
Out of CJ Cron and Randall Grichuk. Okay. I think we said that, I believe, if memory serves me correctly, when the Angels acquired Moustakas and Escobar, I said, well, they picked up a couple of guys. They needed some guys, right? That was when Gio had just gone down. He had the hip injury, and he was done. And listen, Gio had some Gio was solid, but I think he had 50 hits, 49 of them were singles. You know what I'm saying? It's
exactly.
I'm exaggerating, but you know what I'm saying? But he did it, he was there. He could play third. He could play second. He could play first if he needed, whatever. I mean, and he's a good dude. So they addressed that need at that point. And we said, I think they got a couple of guys. Okay. And Moustakas could be a leadership, and he certainly proved to be that guy, right? Escobar's proven to be a guy, like we said he would. And then they made the trades for Grichuk and Cron because they needed guys to fill those voids, right? With the injuries, especially to Joe Adell in the outfield, and with the way things have been going with Walshy at first base, they needed to put somebody at first base. And CJ, they brought him back, but it's not as if either one of those guys, when you look at the splits. And Chuck, I remember texting you, if I'm not mistaken, about home road splits for those guys.
I know.
Okay. I know.
Oh, trust me.
So
numbers look really shiny in Colorado.
Yeah. And I don't want to take anything away from those guys, and because maybe I should put a little onus on those guys to step up and do something, because
they performed well. They performed well outside of Coors. I mean, Grichuk was great in Toronto. Yeah. And Cron was great with Tampa. Yeah. With the Angels, and for his brief.
What I was about to say was, it's not like they came into a pressure-packed situation.
No,
this isn't like, hey, you guys are like you're coming to a second place team. We got on the verge of taking over and trying and we need you guys to step up. No, it's like, dudes, this is like as low a key as an entrance into a potential playoff push as possible. You have zero stress. Stress. The expectations are, hey, just do your thing.
Middle of the road.
Middle of the road. Yeah. Come on. And it hasn't happened for those guys. Which begs the question, because we're talking about the acquisitions and the trade, I'm still going to go back to say, why in God's name would the Angels be adamant about taking Shohei off the market 5 days before the trade deadline? I don't understand it. And I was trying to think about it, like really delve into why make that decision then on that Wednesday when you had until Tuesday to make that decision.
The decision to do it, or the decision to announce it?
The decision to announce it. Now, okay. I have said all along, as a matter of fact, I put a tweet out 2 weeks before the trade deadline, I think it was, saying, and I think it was on a Friday that I put that out, that you absolutely have to listen to trade opportunities for Shohei Ohtani. And if you are absolutely overwhelmed, whatever your threshold is for being overwhelmed as a general manager, if it doesn't meet that threshold, then simple. You just walk away. You just walk away, right? The way I'm looking at it is, there was zero reason to have to put that out there on Wednesday. you still could have made the move in the White Sox deal with Giolito and Lopez. That could have been happen. The next night, when you acquire Crone and Grichuk, now you're at Thursday. You're 4 days before the trade deadline. You could still let teams believe that he might be available, and you're still pushing or trying to make a push towards the playoffs. And I think all you've done by doing that, yeah, great. Hopefully you cash in the last 2 months of the season as far as home games, collect the ticket revenue, whatever extra ticket revenue you're going to collect, because a lot of those tickets are already purchased to begin with, plus the parking, plus the merchandise and all that stuff and the food and concession. I get it. I totally get it. But you've basically just put yourself in the corner if you're the Angels of you absolutely have to sign him now. Like, you have to go out and, I mean, they're going to make an effort to sign him no matter what. But I'm saying, like, if you fail to sign him, you're going to get crushed. You're going to get crushed. And I'm looking at this is what I warned you folks. I said that sometimes we go off on tangents. This seems like it's a little bit of a tangent. But you easily could have just waited. You could have gone to Tuesday post trade deadline and said, we were never trading him.
Right.
You know?
Right.
You easily could have said that.
That's so true. I mean, they could have come out and said, he was never going to get traded. We listened because every team should listen on their players because of the betterment of the franchise going forward.
No doubt.
And that's it.
No doubt.
So where do you guys think that came from then? Did that come from Perry? Did it come from Artie? Like, that's
a collective thing. That is an absolute. That was
a board meeting.
That was a PR move of all PR moves. And the other thing that I thought of, right? Me playing the glass half full, glass half empty kind of guy, and trying to find not so much a silver lining, but trying to rationalize the process from a PR perspective, right? And I'm thinking to myself, and this is just me speculating, not speculating, it's me trying to get to the bottom as to why they decided to make that decision for that Wednesday. If they felt, they being collectively the organization, that the announcement of Shohei being pulled off the market, in theory, was going to provide an adrenaline shot to that clubhouse, then doesn't that question what you actually had in the clubhouse to begin with? Because if you feel the need to make that announcement so that your guys, oh my gosh, the pressure's off, Shohei's staying, then what does that say about the dudes that you've got in the clubhouse, both from a coaching staff perspective and from a player's perspective?
Right.
That's what I was thinking about today. I was on a walk with Kim and I was talking to my wife about it, and it's the one thing I'm like, I don't get it. There was zero reason to do that. Zero reason whatsoever. And as desperate as teams were, especially to acquire starting pitching and elite starting pitching, if there was a chance. Remember, Verlander and Scherzer both were traded. Those are pretty good guys, right? Future Hall of Famers with a bunch of money on their contracts, and they've somehow worked out deals to two different destinations. What do you think the price would have been for Shohei, let's say at 2:00 on Tuesday? And at that point, you're in the catbird seat.
Yep. You
can sit there and go, hey, we're interested. This is what we're willing to give. That's a little light. I want this, this, and this as well. The over ask, because you're always going to over ask in that situation because you don't care. You already in your mind already thinking you're not going to trade them anyway. So you might as well just say, stick them up. Right. It's kind of like when the Rangers traded Teixeira to the Atlanta Braves in that situation, where they ended up getting 5 major league guys out of it. A couple of those guys were key contributors to their run. Elvis Andrus, Jared Saltalamacchia, Neftali Feliz. Those are some pretty Matt Harrison. And then I always forget the 5th guy, which is the outfielder who ended up playing a little bit with the Rangers and played some with the White Sox for Mark Teixeira. A rental. if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So I just that's kind of what was going through my mind. I know we were talking about the Grichuk and Crone thing. That's kind of what brought it back up for me today. But I just didn't understand it. I still don't understand it.
Do you think the conversation ever happened with Shohei and said, "Hey, listen, we may trade you. We want you back, but we're looking to invest in this franchise with hopefully you being a part of it. And if the right players are available that are going to be a big piece of what we want to do in the future, you know, to build success with this organization, and then we're going all in on you, you have a better chance to play with the team that's, you know, has playoff aspirations. But we're going for you in free agency. But here's what it is. We need to look at this organization first, because if you leave us, we are screwed. And that's another topic. And I don't know, Jeff, I think that's one of the questions in the mailbag. How could the Angels possibly replace Ohtani if he walks via free agency or via trades? They would either have to deplete the farm system and or go all in free agency. And it still would take 2 or 3 players to equal his value.
And where's that farm system rank right now?
3 in the bottom tier.
Uh-huh. So you're going to deplete a farm system that's already depleted.
Right.
Right.
So if they, yeah.
To answer your question, do you think there was a conversation that was had by Ohtani or with the organization or Ohtani?
Yeah, with
maybe.
Ohtani and his agent.
Maybe. But here's the way I look at let's assume that there was. And clearly if there was a hypothetical conversation between the two, and Shohei said, that sounds good, I get it, I see where you guys are coming from, if you got to do what you got to do, then you've got free reign to go make that move, right? If Shohei says, man, I'd really prefer to stay, I don't want to go somewhere else right now,
well, then you don't, yeah.
You don't, but now you're letting a player determine your future. There's zero guarantee that player is going to re-sign with you.
Right.
So you've just given him carte blanche. It's like Barry Bloom, a writer, used to be for MLB.com. I think he does some stuff for Sportico. When the whole thing happened, he kept saying, "Oh, I know on good authority that the Angels would have lost $20 million on marketing dollars had they traded Shohei Ohtani." I'm like, how? Most of those deals are done, right? They're already done. They're booked. Most of them are paid for if they haven't already been, or they have an upcoming payment to pay the balance of whatever marketing deal that was. And he shot back saying, no, they specifically said that there's language. Because I stipulated the only way that happens is if there's actual language in that marketing contract, that sponsorship deal that stipulates that. And he said, nope, there was language in the contract. I'm like, and then I'm thinking to myself, well, that's stupid if you're an organization. Now you've just given the authority for a corporation to make decisions for you as to what you can do, good, bad, or indifferent, from a transaction standpoint based on marketing dollars. Like, why would you ever sign that contract? Because at the end of the day, and I'm looking at it from a business perspective, having been in that role from a sponsorship standpoint, if that organization is sitting there going, hey, man, $20 million, but we need this language. If you guys trade them, it becomes whatever, 70% of the deal. Okay, stand by. I'm going to go find 4 other companies and get $5 million from each of those companies with no stipulation. I get my $20 million, and I can do whatever the hell I want as an organization. I'm not going to be dependent upon some corporation saying, hey, you can or can't trade them, or if you do, there's a penalty for it. That's just absolutely absurd. That doesn't make any sense to me from a business perspective, unless it's only about the bottom line, right? If it's only about butts and seats, cashing out the last couple of months, making sure you get that 20. I have no idea if there was such a clause. I have no idea if there was such a marketing deal in place. I'm just telling you what people are saying. I have it on good authority, or I have a source. It's all bullshit, right? Until someone actually produces it.
Sure.
But then if someone does produce it, it's like you got to ask those questions, because how does that make any sense? Why would you ever give the power on a sponsorship deal? Like, you're doing your best from an organization standpoint to provide everything that the organization or the sponsor wants or is going to get as far as the contract is concerned. That's the whole idea of it, whether it's signage, whether it's radio reads, live reads, whether it's commercials, whether it's appearances by Shohei or whomever. It's all assets that are just listed in the contract. They're right there. It's Appendix A. This is what you get. You're paying us this for this amount of time, and you get A through Z. And as long as the Angels are checking off the boxes of A through Z, you're fulfilling your role as an organization to that sponsorship. Why would you ever put any type of stipulation? That makes zero sense to me. I hope that wasn't the case. I hope Barry was just talking out of his ass. But at some point, somebody's got to ask these questions and push back on some of these things, because it continues to make the organization look bad. And listen,
Sure.
Organizations are pretty good at making themselves look bad on their own. They don't need help, right? Just take a look at the Baltimore Orioles and their shit show this past week.
Oh, my
with
Lord.
the play-by-play guy. So I'll get off my tangent there, but that's kind of how I was feeling about this whole Shohei thing, and because we were talking about Cron and Grichuk. But it begs the questions as to why. Because now you look at 24, because you're 6.5 back in the wild card, 12.5 back in the division. The only thing you can do is like, all right, what do we have in house? Because that free agent market is thin. And you ask, what are you going to do to replace Shohei? You need an ace, and you need a pretty damn good DH or position
Right.
player to fill that void. And that's not going to come cheap if you can find it on the free agent market.
Right.
And you're not. Yeah, I think in our last episode we looked at the available guys in free agency. There's some solid guys out there, but none of them are standouts. None of them are difference makers. And even if in real quick, Jeff, and even if there were, you're paying both of those guys 28 to 30 million each if they were on the level of Shohei Ohtani.
Yep.
So, I mean, you just have to keep them. You have to keep them. And I tell you what, it's going to be really bad for the organization overall and the fan base if they're not able to.
Well,
No doubt.
yeah, if you lose him and you go after those free agents too, what's your pitch to bring them here? You know, You don't have Ohtani anymore. These guys come in knowing that their role is to replace him in either the pitching or in the hitting capacity. So they now have that on them as well for a team that has a history over the last, let's call it a decade of not winning. Why do I want to come here? I think I'm going to go talk to these other teams, and I'll get back to you.
But you know how that's remedied, right?
Well, yeah, you overpay.
Overpay and guaranteed contracts.
Right.
Right. So now that's why I'm saying, if you don't sign Shohei, and I don't even want to get into, do you sign Shohei?
Right.
But if you don't sign Shohei, just like the whole sponsorship thing, you've painted yourself into a corner again, because you absolutely need somebody. Unless the organization says it's a tear down, so to speak, modified tear down, because I don't think you have to go a full, to the studs tear down, because I think you do have I think you've got some pieces where it could happen fairly quickly. I don't think it's a 5-year thing.
No,
if you believe in Neto and you believe in Siltseth and you believe in Ohtani, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. There's some things you could do if you believe in Adele and so on and so forth, and whoever else you got down in the minor leagues. I don't think it's a full 5-year, hey, we're tanking and whatever, because I don't think the fan base will buy into that. But I think the fan base just wants you to be honest with them. I think the fan base wants you to say, okay, enough of this Rendon, contract kind of stuff, or Josh Hamilton. And look, I mean, everyone was hoping for the best when those things happened, right? When Albert signed, everybody hoped for the best. When C.J. Wilson signed, everyone was hoping for the best. You sign Anthony Rendon, you're hoping for the best. Anytime you sign a free agent, you're always hoping for the best. Even though collectively people are going, why'd they sign him? Did we really need a third baseman to pay that much? I mean, why are we hamstringing ourselves for the future? And I think that's the mindset that's got to stop, is like, hey man, I know we want to win, and I know we want to win now. I know there's like this urgency to win, but we got to stick with a plan. Got to stick with a plan, one way or the other. I mean, if you're all in every single year on the free agent market and you don't give a shit about the tax on going on the overage on the tax, like if you like the Dodgers did for a short period of time, then you better be all in. But they were doing that stuff with dudes in the minor leagues. Clayton Kershaw goes down, no problem. We got this kid Urias. He might be all right. He's got a chance.
Or Walker Buehler.
Walker Buehler before he breaks it. You know what I'm saying? It's like they've just had dudes that they were able to fill the void. So they were spending, but they were also doing it on the development side. Yeah. And I think you're constantly, it feels like as a fan, the organization is in this battle of like the purgatory. Like, oh, we're going into the free agent market, or no, we're going to develop. No, it's like this back and forth. And that's why you get caught in the middle of, what do you do? And then you make these moves for the guys that you needed at the time, and you give up whatever prospect collateral that you did have, that from a prospect ranking perspective that you had, because rankings don't mean a whole hell of a lot, but it sounds good when you're trading pieces like that. Now you have to wait for the influx of the new guys you just drafted to fill the prospect list up. You know what I mean? So it reshuffles the deck once again and see how it all shakes out. But it's like, it gets to be a little frustrating, I guess is what I'm saying. So that's why I always said about the Shohei thing. Yeah, you kind of have an eye on 23, but you absolutely have to have an eye on 24, 25, and 26. If you're liking these guys that you have now and you're forcing them up to the big leagues early, right, for a reason, then it's got to be about the future. And if you get there this year, great. If not, and a complete teardown, by the way, that's going to Mike and saying, will you waive it?
So I was just going to bring that up, because there's been a lot of whispering going on, people asking that question of, if we lose Shohei and he goes somewhere else and we go to complete teardown, does that mean going to Mike and saying, will you waive the no trade clause, getting rid of your franchise player? I mean, arguably a guy that replaces Tim Salmon as Mr. Angel, and move on to try to rebuild in, a 3 to 4 year period, hopefully, to get something solid that you can compete in the coming decade. Chuck, what do you think?
I don't know that'll happen. I don't think a full. I just don't. Knowing Artie, I don't see it. I don't see it. I'm talking about a full.
Sure.
Rendon, whatever. I mean, that's like sunk money anyways, right? It's on the books. That's like, you could release them and it's like, whatever. I mean,
would anybody notice?
Mike's a different story. That's a different animal. And I don't see it happening.
Yeah. And by the way, my position is, no, you don't. I think that's a guy that you keep for the duration of his career. That's my 2 cents.
And I don't see him doing that. I don't see him going to Artie and saying, hey man,
Right.
Not right now. In 2 years, maybe, on the real back end.
Sure.
Like he'd like that, if they haven't gotten there with the Angels, I can see that then.
Sure. Sure.
But that's just me knowing the individuals. I just don't see it happening.
Yeah. All right. Well, should we read some
let's do
some mailbag stuff? So I guess, going off of, you need to stick to a plan. I guess these first 3 questions kind of fall into the bucket of what exactly is the plan. So there are 3 questions that are basically the same, and they're from Lyle from Houston, Texas, Craig from Beale Air Force Base in California. Thank you for your service, sir. And from Brandon in Newport News, Virginia. And they're all asking essentially the same question, which is how should the organization approach a new coaching staff next year, which essentially is asking the question, do we fire Nevin? Do we fire Wise? Do we move on to, to a new coaching staff?
Go ahead, Chuck.
Nevin, I need to get back to you on because right as of today, Sunday,
he's day to day like we all are, right?
August 13th, I would say you keep Nevin. The players like playing for him. Matt Wise, allegedly, Matt Wise, get out of here. This guy is awful. How is it that last year Reed Detmer struggled? He goes down to AAA. He works with the AAA pitching coach. He comes back. He's lights out. Okay. Same thing happened with Chase Silseth when he came up. I mean, he was with the team and, serving up long balls, went back to AAA. They changed some things around down there with him. He comes back and he's been lights out ever since. Every time to your tweet the other night, I wasn't available for the game, but I like how you said Reed Detmer shook off 4 pitches and threw a meatball. And that's really what he's been doing. He's got zero confidence out there. And the guy's got a great curveball, a great slider. He throws mid-90s, touches upper 90s, here and there. I don't get it. But I don't think that Matt Wise is the answer. He needs to get out of here.
Yeah. I hate talking about individuals and whether or not they should lose their jobs, right? Because it's just a tough thing to talk about, unless you've walked in those shoes, right? So, And listen, I grew up with my dad who, once he got into coaching, always said, whether it's coaching or managing, he goes, you get hired to get fired. I mean, that's just the reality of it in professional sports.
Yeah.
So everyone's aware of that potential. I think it all boils down to Perry Manassian deciding on who his guy is. Look, his hands were tied last offseason, and I know we've touched on this earlier on this year, but the team was up for sale. It's difficult to get a manager that you want or are connected with to come and take a 1-year deal because you have no idea what the new owner is going to do if the team eventually is sold. The team wasn't sold. And at the same time, you've got to name a manager because you've got things to happen. I mean, long gone to those days where, guys don't start really working out until they get to spring training in mid-February, late February. I mean, New Year's Eve on January 2nd, I mean, dudes are like showing up in camps. You know what I'm saying? Coaches are showing up, managers are showing up. It's like, it's go time. Like it's the ramp up. And so you have to have a manager in place, I believe, at that point. Yeah. And that's why I think, Perry's kind of caught in the middle. And I think the question becomes, is he your guy? If he's your guy, well, then absolutely make him your guy. But if he's not your guy, then you need to go out and get the coaching staff that you think is going to get you to the promised land. Now, keep this in mind. Perry was the person in charge who brought Nevin in to work under Joe Madden after he was not renewed with the New York Yankees. And I'm talking about Nevin.
Yeah.
So he felt good enough, whether it was Joe's request or whether it was Perry's suggestion, he felt good enough to make the hire at that point. So there is some sort of a connection there. And so I think that's what I think we just have to wait and see how things play out from a coaching staff perspective. I just think I think you got to get back to hire your manager, whoever your general manager is, Perry in this case, hire your manager based on your criteria and let that person hire his entire staff. Stay out of it. You have no business as a general manager. this is my personal feeling of you can make suggestions, but the authority, if you're hiring a guy at that level and the amount of money you're paying them and giving them a 2 or 3 year deal, let them hire the staff that they want, because that person needs to feel the autonomy to go out there and bring in his guys or her guys, whatever you want, I don't care, to make the decisions and to work collectively as a coaching staff. And I think the manager is best suited to make those decisions. All too often nowadays, you see general managers kind of plugging their guys in here, plugging their guy, assistant coach or his assistant hitting guy, or, I don't need, if I need as a general manager eyes and ears down in the clubhouse, then I suck at my job and I have no business being a general manager. Because you should be able, as a general manager at that level, be able to go have conversations with people, just kind of walk and get a feel for sense. If you don't have that sense, then you have no business being a leader of an organization. Because that's the whole point of being a leader. You hire people typically and put them in charge who make up for your deficiencies. General managers aren't managers. So you hire the best possible manager and empower them to bring in their staff that's going to get the most out of the 26 dudes or 40 dudes. If you're talking about the 40-man roster, get the most out of those 40 guys for an extended period of time, year in and year out. And I think when you start putting people in place yourself onto staffs, whether it's the Angels or any organization, I think you start undermining the manager. And I think that just rarely works in my case. In my thought, look at Bruce Bochy. Chris Young wanted Bruce Bochy as the manager of the Texas Rangers. Boch, coaching staff is yours, my man. You've won a couple of World Series. You should probably be in the Hall of Fame. You're the guy. You make the decisions on your coaching staff. I trust. That's the way it should be. And I'll always believe that.
Yeah. All right.
That's
Next
fair.
question.
I like that.
Next question. So going through them, we've actually answered a bunch of them as we've just had our discussions, which we normally do. But here's one that came in, and we actually kind of touched on this a little bit before we hit record last week. And it keeps kind of bubbling up a little bit on Twitter and different places. So this is from Tank in Glendale, and he asks, with starting pitching being inconsistent with the youngsters this year, Detmers in particular, and with the possibility of losing Ohtani, how seriously should the Angels look at Trevor Bauer? He has done well in Japan and could be a huge help in Anaheim, but obviously comes with a lot of question marks, a lot of baggage. Chuck, what do you think?
I think it's too much baggage. And I think that it's probably bad for, I mean, obviously it's bad for the PR, right? I mean, what are you going to do? Oh, we signed this guy that's alleged, beat this woman and all this. And then you could have some issues in the clubhouse with some guys. I don't know. I mean, he's doing well in Japan, but he's still below the average starting pitcher in Japan's stats. So what does that equate to if he were to come back to the major leagues? So I say no. Just no. It's just, I think it's a bad idea. And hey, I am all for giving people second chances. That is not what I'm talking about. I just don't think the Angels, who have been, with the Tyler Skaggs thing and, some other scandals, issues, I don't think they need that right now. I think they just need to kind of, move forward and, and not have any distractions of any sort in that way. What about you, Victor?
Hard pass. Next question.
Okay, let's go. I could have made it that I should have just said hard pass and just moved on. Let's get another one.
I'll throw my 2
one
cents
more, last one.
Well.
Go ahead, Jeff.
All right.
No. What are your 2 cents? What are your 2 cents?
My 2 cents is I cannot imagine this team losing Shohei Ohtani in the offseason and the PR pitch that they make to their fan base is, but we're bringing in Trevor Bauer. Boom. Yeah, that's just.
Oh, you had to do a boom.
Yeah,
that's
just,
don't ever do that.
That's just not going to work. All right, I'm going to ask this one because of what Victor is wearing today. So this is from Paul in Clearwater, and he says, "Love the podcast, gents. Off-topic question: favorite song or album, band or artist?" So Victor's rocking the Guns N' Roses shirt today. Love it, guys. Favorite band, song, artist?
Go ahead, Jack.
Favorite album? That's a tough one. Probably Rumors by Fleetwood Mac or Dark Side of the Moon by Pink Floyd. I was just telling my wife the other day my favorite song. Like, she was asking, what song would you put on when you're just wanting to take off out of the driveway and we're on our little road trip? What is going to be that first song to just get you in the mood? Let's go. And I told her, I said, every time, Dire Straits, Sultan of Swing. Boom. I'm just ready to go. It's a great song. So those are my takes.
All right,
Jeffers, what do you got?
All right. So for those of you that really pay attention to this podcast, you'll notice every week I've got a different album that's positioned up behind me. So this week got Led Zeppelin.
I never knew that.
And we got,
I never noticed that.
You guys never pay attention to me. Right?
Wow.
I've got Houses of the Holy this week, and I've got Triumphs Never Surrender. That's
when
this
we
week's
record,
offering.
It's like these smaller windows of
right,
all we
but
see
in
is
the
each
picture
other.
every week you can always see it's a different album. So
I knew that.
I'm a child of the 70s, 80s, 90s. I love my rock, but I am really of late. When I say of late, I mean like the last 6 months, getting into some country music, and I'm a big fan of Old Dominion right now.
Yeah,
they're
great.
kind of my guys. So
That's
who I'll
Kim's,
throw out there.
well, it's one of Kim's favorites is Old Dominion. They're fantastic. Favorite band for me of all time is Boston.
Oh, nice.
Albums, that's a hard one because I was more of just a song guy growing up as opposed to albums. But I like your pick of Rumors by Fleetwood Mac. Saw them in concert 2-3 years ago, and that's still to this day one of the best concerts I've ever seen.
Nice.
Oh, yeah.
And song, I've always enjoyed like the Get You Fired Up song. Is that what you said, Jeff?
Well, that's what I said.
That's what Chuck went with. But
Kickstart My Heart by Motley Crue is
there you go.
Oh, that's a good one.
If I ever had a walk-up song or a walk-in song, that would absolutely be it. But as everybody knows, Leonard Skinner's "Simple Man" is just a great fucking song.
Oh, that's a great song.
There you go.
So
what was your song, Jeff?
Man, I don't know that I picked a song. I will say, again, I'm just kind of in that groove right now. I love the Old Dominion song, My Heart is a Bar. Like that is that's resonating hard with me right now.
Now I'm going to have to put them on my Spotify. I've never heard them before.
You'll like them.
You live in Tennessee and you haven't heard of Old Dominion? What is wrong with you, man?
I know. My youngest, she's like, Dad, you need to get with it.
Clean it up. Clean it up, Chuck Richter.
All right.
I like Chris Stapleton.
Those are our questions. But, Chuck, I think that you had some things that you wanted to end with today.
Sure. Hey, guys. So you may have seen some stuff on Twitter this week and obviously our website. We lost two really, really good friends and long-time posters on our website, on our forum. We're going on 20 years now, and these weren't guys that we just interacted online. These were people that we've met up with in person. They attended events of ours. We knew them really well. They were family to us, and one of them battled cancer, and he lost his battle on Tuesday, and another one just came out of the nowhere. And he passed on Thursday. So I would just like to say to the families of Brandon Gibson and and Lou Garcia that we love you, we miss you, and here's a toast to you.
Love you guys. Miss you.
That'll do it for episode 16. We thank you as always for listening. Chuck, Jeff, love you guys. Thank you.